Commander Vashai stared at the star charts displayed on his ship's main screen. Another boring patrol through the outer rim systems. These missions always felt like a waste of time. His job was to find new worlds that his people could use. But most planets out here were empty rocks or covered in primitive life forms. "Sir, we have detected another solar system ahead," reported Science Officer Crete H from her station. Her blue-scaled hands moved quickly over the control panels. "It appears to have several planets. One of them shows signs of industrial activity." Vexhi's four eyes focused on the data. The Zephyrian Empire had been expanding for over 1,000 years. They were good at finding useful worlds and taking what they needed. Most species they met were too weak to fight back. Those that tried to resist usually changed their minds after seeing a Zephyrian battle fleet. "What kind of industrial activity?" he asked, walking over to Creeth's station. His tall, thin body moved with the grace of someone who had spent decades in space. "Basic chemical rockets, some orbital stations, radio signals." "Nothing impressive," Creeth replied. She pointed at the readings on her screen. They appear to have recently developed space travel. Very primitive stuff. I would classify them as barely space-capable. Vex nodded. This was typical. Young species always thought they were advanced when they first left their home planet. They had no idea how big the galaxy really was, or how many older, stronger civilizations were out there. The Zephyrians themselves were not the most powerful race in the galaxy, but they were certainly stronger than whatever lived on this distant world. "Any signs of advanced weapons or defensive systems?" Vexhi asked. "None that I can detect. Their largest ships are tiny compared to ours. They use fusion engines and basic energy weapons. Their orbital defenses look like they were built yesterday," Creeth said with a small laugh. "This should be easy." The bridge crew began preparing for what they called an integration mission. This was the polite term they used for taking over a new world. The Zephyrian Empire preferred to avoid destroying entire planets if possible. Dead worlds were harder to use for mining and farming. It was much better to convince the local species to work for the Empire willingly. "Set course for the third planet," Vexhi ordered. "Begin standard approach procedures." As their ship moved closer to the solar system, Vexhi thought about his career. He had done this same mission dozens of times. The pattern was always similar. First, they would scan the planet and count the population. Then they would make contact and explain how things would work. Most species understood quickly that fighting was pointless. A few tried to resist, but that never lasted long. The Zephyrian fleet consisted of 5 ships. Vexhi's command ship was the largest, with powerful weapons and thick armor. The other 4 ships were smaller, but still much bigger than anything the primitive species usually had. Together, they could destroy any defense these people might try to build. "Sir, I'm picking up something strange," Creeth said suddenly. Her voice sounded confused. "What do you mean, strange?" "There are some unusual readings from the outer part of this solar system. The signals keep appearing and disappearing. It might be interference from asteroids or solar radiation," she said, checking her instruments again. Vexhi looked at the data himself. There did seem to be some odd patterns in the sensor readings, but space was full of strange phenomena. Magnetic fields, radiation, asteroid collisions, all of these could create confusing signals. Probably nothing important, he decided. Keep monitoring it, but focus on the main planet. The third planet was blue and green with white clouds. It looked beautiful and healthy. Vexhi could see why the local species had managed to develop technology here. Worlds like this were perfect for supporting life. Population scan shows about 8 billion individuals, Creedh reported. They are spread across several continents. Major cities, industrial centers, transportation networks. A typical developing civilization. Perfect, Vexai said. 8 billion workers will be very useful. Begin broadcasting the standard message. The standard message was simple and direct. It explained that the local species was now part of the Zephyrian Empire. They would need to provide resources and labor to support the Empire's needs. In return, they would receive protection and access to some advanced technologies. Most species found this arrangement acceptable, especially when they saw how powerful the Zephyrian fleet was. Vexai watched as his communications officer sent the message toward the planet. Soon they would receive a response. Usually, the local leaders asked for time to discuss the situation. This was normal and expected. The Zephyrians were patient. They could wait a few hours or even days for the locals to make the right decision. "Sir, we are receiving a reply," the communications officer announced. "Put it on the main screen." A face appeared on the display. It belonged to one of the planet's inhabitants. They called themselves humans, according to the translation software. The individual looked somewhat similar to Zephyrians, but shorter and with different colored skin. Most species in the galaxy had similar basic features, so this was not surprising. "Greetings," the human said through the translator. "We have received your message. We request 48 hours to consult with our leaders and prepare our response." Vexai smiled. This was exactly what he had expected to hear. The humans were being smart. They wanted time to realize they had no choice but to agree. "Granted," Vexai replied. "You have 48 of your planet's hours. Do not attempt to flee or hide. We will be watching." The transmission ended. Vexai felt satisfied with how things were proceeding. This mission would be completed quickly and easily, just like most of the others. "Keep scanning their military forces," he ordered. "I want to know about every ship and weapon they have. When they agree to join the Empire, we will need to take control of their defenses." Kreeth continued her work, but she kept glancing at the strange readings from the outer solar system. Something about them bothered her, though she could not explain why. The signals seemed too organized to be natural phenomena, but too weak and scattered to be artificial constructions. "Sir," she said hesitantly, "should we investigate these outer system anomalies?" Vexai waved a hand dismissively. "After we finish with the planet. Right now, focus on the humans. They are what matters." As the Zephyrian fleet waited for the human response, none of them noticed the faint gravitational disturbances moving slowly through the darkness beyond their sensors. Something very large was beginning to move toward them from the cold emptiness of space. The 48 hours passed slowly for Commander Vexai. His fleet remained in position around the human planet, displaying their weapons and power. This was standard procedure. When a primitive species saw the size and strength of Zephyrian warships, they usually became more cooperative. During this time, Kreeth continued scanning the human military forces. What she found was exactly what they had expected. The humans had built small warships with basic fusion engines. Their weapons were simple energy beams and metal projectiles fired at high speed. Their defensive shields were weak and would not stop serious attacks. "Their largest ship is only 200 meters long," Kreeth H reported. "They have maybe 50 warships in total. Most of them are much smaller than their biggest ones." Vexai nodded with satisfaction. The human fleet could not possibly threaten even one of his ships, let alone 5. This would be another easy victory for the Zephyrian Empire. "What about their planetary defenses?" he asked. "A few orbital weapons platforms. Some missile systems on the surface. Nothing that could damage our shields," Kreeth H said. She paused for a moment, then added, "Sir, those strange readings from the outer system are getting stronger." "Stronger how?" "The signals are more frequent now, and they seem to be moving. I think there might be something large out there, but our sensors cannot get a clear reading." Vexai considered this information. It was possible that the humans had hidden some ships in the outer areas of their solar system. Many species tried this trick when they were first contacted by the Empire. They would hide their best ships and hope to surprise the Zephyrian fleet. How large could these hidden ships be? He asked. Unknown, sir. The readings are very unclear. It could be several small ships, or perhaps one larger vessel. But even their largest ship would not be a threat to us. Keep monitoring it, Vexai decided. If they try to ambush us with hidden ships, we will destroy them quickly. During the waiting period, the Zephyrians intercepted many human communications. Most of these messages were exactly what they expected to hear. Human leaders were arguing about what to do. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender immediately. The humans were scared and confused, which was normal. But Vexai noticed something interesting about one of the human commanders. A woman named Admiral Chen Wei seemed much calmer than the others. While other human leaders panicked and shouted, she spoke quietly and gave careful orders. Her voice never showed fear or anger. This Admiral Chen is either very brave or very stupid, Vexai commented to his staff. Perhaps she does not understand how hopeless their situation is, suggested his weapons officer. When the 48 hours ended, Vexai opened communications with the planet again. Admiral Chun Wei appeared on his screen, wearing a military uniform. Her face was serious but not frightened. We have considered your offer, she said calmly. We must decline. Vexai was surprised. Most species accepted the Empire's terms immediately. A few asked for better conditions, but almost none refused completely. You refuse? He said. Do you understand what this means? We are offering you the chance to join a galactic civilization. You will gain access to technologies your species has never imagined. We understand your offer, Admiral Chun replied. Our answer remains no. Then you choose war, Vexai said. His voice became harder. Your ships cannot defeat ours. Your weapons cannot penetrate our defenses. This is not a battle you can win. We will see, Admiral Chun said. The transmission ended. Vexai stared at the blank screen for several seconds. The human's confidence was puzzling. Either she was completely insane, or she knew something he did not. Begin attack procedures, he ordered. Target their orbital defenses first. Show them how outmatched they are. The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation. Their powerful weapons charged up, ready to destroy the human defenses in minutes. This would be a quick demonstration of superior firepower. The human fleet began moving to intercept them. Vexai watched with amusement as the tiny human ships approached his massive vessels. It was like watching insects attack a giant beast. The first exchange of weapons fire went exactly as expected. Zephyrian energy beams cut through human shields like they were made of paper. Human return fire bounced harmlessly off Zephyrian armor. Within minutes, several human ships were destroyed or badly damaged. Sir, Kreef called out suddenly. The gravitational anomaly. It's moving very fast toward us. Vexai looked at her sensor readings. Something was definitely approaching from the outer solar system, and it was huge. The gravitational distortions were unlike anything he had ever seen from a normal starship. How large is it? He demanded. I cannot get an accurate measurement, Kreet said, her voice filled with confusion. The mass readings are impossible. It would have to be larger than our entire fleet combined. That cannot be right. Check your instruments. I have checked them 3 times, sir. The readings are correct. Something enormous is approaching us, and it is accelerating. Vexai felt the first touch of concern. The humans have been hiding something in their outer solar system, and it was much bigger than he had expected. But even if they had built a very large ship, it would still be primitive technology. Size alone did not win space battles. All ships, maintain attack formation, he ordered. Continue destroying the human fleet. We will deal with their hidden ship when it arrives. The battle continued, but Vexai found himself watching the sensor readings more than the fighting. The gravitational anomaly was getting stronger as it approached. His science officer's estimates of its size kept growing larger. "Sir," Kretich said, her voice now showing real alarm, "I am detecting massive energy signatures from the approaching object. The power readings are far beyond anything the humans should be capable of producing." "Show me," Vexai ordered. The main screen changed to display long-range sensor data. In the darkness of space, something was moving toward them. It was still too far away to see clearly, but the energy emissions were incredible. Whatever the humans had built, it was using more power than some entire Zephyrian battle fleets. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," his communications officer announced. "From the planet?" "No, sir, from the approaching vessel." Vexai felt his skin grow cold. A transmission from empty space meant that the humans had managed to hide a ship completely from his sensors until now. That required technology far more advanced than anything they should possess. "Put it through," he said. A new voice came through the speakers. It was human, but different from Admiral Chun. This voice was deeper, more commanding, and absolutely confident. "Attention, Zephyrian Fleet. This is Captain Morrison of the UES Humanity's Wrath. You have 60 seconds to withdraw from Earth space and leave this system immediately." Vexai stared at the screen in shock. The human was giving him an ultimatum. After everything he had seen of their primitive technology, this human was threatening the Zephyrian fleet. "Impossible," he whispered. Commander Vexai felt anger burning in his chest. No primitive species had ever dared to threaten the Zephyrian fleet. These humans clearly did not understand who they were dealing with. It was time to teach them a lesson they would never forget. 60 seconds? Vexai said into the communication system. "You have the courage to threaten us? We are the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Your pathetic species has barely left its own planet." The human voice replied immediately, still calm and confident. "You now have 55 seconds to comply. Fire on their hidden ship," Vexai ordered. "Show these humans what real power looks like." His weapons officer began targeting the area where the gravitational readings were strongest. But the task was more difficult than expected. Their sensors could detect the massive object, but they could not get a clear visual lock on it. "Sir, something is interfering with our targeting systems," the weapons officer reported. "I cannot establish a firing solution." "Then fire in the general direction," Vexai snapped. "Saturate the entire air with our weapons." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire toward the approaching anomaly. Dozens of powerful energy beams lanced out into the darkness of space. These weapons had destroyed space stations and enemy fleets across the galaxy. Nothing could survive that kind of concentrated firepower, but something was wrong. The energy beams seemed to bend and twist as they approached their target. Some of them simply disappeared entirely. Others were deflected in impossible directions. It was as if space itself was being manipulated around the hidden human vessel. "What is happening to our weapons?" Vexai demanded. "I do not know, sir," his weapons officer said. "The beams are being affected by some kind of field we have never encountered before." Kreith looked up from her sensor station, her 4 eyes wide with fear. "Sir, the object is decloaking. I am getting a visual image." The main screen changed to show what was approaching them. For several seconds, nobody on the bridge said anything. They simply stared in shock at what the humans had built. The ship was enormous. It stretched for dozens of kilometers through space, its dark metal hull reflecting their ship's lights. Strange geometric patterns covered its surface, pulsing with energy that seemed to bend light around them. Massive weapon systems were visible along its length, each one larger than entire Zephyrian warships. "Impossible," HFY whispered. "How did they build something like that?" The Leviathan-class warship hung in space like a dark mountain. Its mere presence seemed to distort everything around it. Gravitational waves rippled outward from its hull, affecting the movement of nearby asteroids and debris. Kreith was frantically working at her station, trying to understand what they were seeing. "Sir, the power readings from that ship are beyond our measurement capabilities. It is generating more energy than our entire fleet combined. That cannot be possible. These humans are primitives. They use chemical rockets and basic fusion engines. They cannot build something like this." "The evidence is right in front of us, sir," Kreith said quietly. The human voice came through their speakers again. "You now have 30 seconds to withdraw." HFY's pride would not allow him to retreat. The Zephyrian Empire had never been defeated by a newly contacted species. If word got out that they had run away from humans, it would damage the Empire's reputation across the galaxy. "All ships, attack formation," he ordered. "Target that vessel with everything we have." "Sir, perhaps we should consider—" Credit began. "No," HFY shouted. "We are Zephyrians. We do not run from anyone." The 5 Zephyrian warships moved into attack position around the human Leviathan. Their weapons charged to full power, ready to unleash destruction on the massive vessel. HFY was confident that concentrated fire from his entire fleet would be enough to damage or destroy any ship, no matter how large. "Fire all weapons," he commanded. Energy beams and missiles flew toward the human ship from every direction. The attack was coordinated perfectly, designed to overwhelm any defensive system. For a moment, the space around the Leviathan was filled with brilliant flashes of light and explosions. When the light faded, the human ship was completely undamaged. Not a single mark appeared on its dark hull. Somehow, it had absorbed or deflected everything they had thrown at it. The human voice spoke again, but this time it carried a tone of disappointment. "You had your chance." What happened next defied everything HFY understood about space combat. The Leviathan did not fire conventional weapons. Instead, sections of its hull opened to reveal devices that hurt to look at directly. Energy patterns emerged that seemed to exist in more dimensions than normal space allowed. 2 of HFY's escort ships simply stopped existing. They did not explode or break apart. They were there one moment and gone the next, as if they had never been built at all. The space where they had been was now empty, not even leaving debris behind. "What kind of weapons are those?" Kreith gasped. Before anyone could answer, the Leviathan moved. Despite its enormous size, it accelerated instantly to impossible speeds. Physics said that something so massive should move slowly and clumsily. But this ship moved like a living creature, fast and graceful. Another Zephyrian warship tried to escape. The Leviathan reached out with some kind of energy field and simply held it in place. The ship's engines fired at full power, but it could not move. Then the human weapon fired again, and the ship ceased to exist. "Sir, we must surrender," Kreith said desperately. "This is not a battle we can win." HFY stared at the tactical display. In less than 2 minutes, he had lost 3 of his 5 ships. The humans had weapons that violated every law of physics he knew. Their ship was larger and more powerful than anything he had ever seen. How is this possible? He asked himself. They are supposed to be primitive. The Leviathan was now directly in front of his command ship. Up close, its size was even more terrifying. HFY could see weapon systems that were bigger than his entire vessel. Energy patterns flowed across its hull like living lightning. "Zephyrian Commander," the human voice said, "you will surrender immediately. Shut down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." "Boarded?" HFY said weakly. "We have questions for you." the human explained. Questions about your empire, your technology, and your intentions toward Earth. Vexai looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? His weapons were useless. His ships were destroyed. The humans had technology that made the Zephyrian Empire look like children playing with toys. Sir? His weapons officer asked. Vexai closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he knew what he had to do. Power down all weapons, he said quietly. Shut down the engines. Prepare for boarding. On the main screen, the Leviathan loomed over them like a dark god. Vexai realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was wrong. These humans were not primitives. They were something else entirely, and somehow they had been hiding their true nature from the entire galaxy. Asterisk. The human boarding pods attached to Vexai's ship with disturbing silence. He had expected the loud crashes and explosions that usually came with forced boarding. Instead, the human devices simply bonded with his hull as if they belonged there. Even their boarding technology was beyond Zephyrian understanding. Vexai and Kreeth were escorted through corridors they had never seen before. The humans had somehow created passages inside his own ship, passages that had not existed minutes earlier. The technology required to reshape metal and create new spaces was incredible. The human soldiers wore armor that seemed to flow like liquid around their bodies. Their faces were hidden behind helmets that showed no reflection. They moved with perfect coordination, never speaking, but somehow communicating with each other. Everything about them suggested technology far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians possessed. They were brought into what had been his own conference room, but it was different now. The walls had been covered with strange devices that hummed with energy. New furniture had been placed in the center, furniture that looked grown rather than built. Admiral Chun Wei was waiting for them. In person, she seemed smaller than she had appeared on the communication screen, but her presence filled the room. Her eyes studied the two Zephyrian officers with the patience of someone who had all the time in the galaxy. Please sit, she said, gesturing to chairs that adjusted themselves to fit Zephyrian bodies. Vexai remained standing. I demand to know how you did this. Your species is primitive. You have only recently developed space travel. How do you possess technology that surpasses our own? Admiral Chun smiled sadly. That is the first misconception we need to correct. Humanity is not a young species. We have been traveling in space for over 300 years. Impossible. Our records show. Your records show what we wanted them to show. Admiral Chun interrupted. Everything you think you know about humanity is a carefully constructed lie. She activated a device on the table, and holographic images filled the air around them. The images showed Earth, but not the Earth that Vexai had seen in his scans. This Earth was different, darker, with massive cities underground and technology beyond imagination. 200 years ago, a species called the Devourers found Earth. Admiral Chun began. They were very much like you, Commander. They saw a young civilization and decided to take what they wanted. They attacked without warning and killed 2 billion humans in the first day. The holographic images showed scenes of destruction that made Vexai's skin crawl. Massive alien ships bombarded human cities while people fled in terror. The images were too realistic to be fiction. But the Devourers made a mistake, Admiral Chun continued. They thought they had won after the first attack. They landed troops and began setting up mining operations. They believed humans were broken and defeated. What happened to them? Kreeth asked quietly. We killed them all, Admiral Chun said simply. Every single one. It took us 3 years, but we hunted down every devourer in our solar system and destroyed them completely. New images appeared in the air. Humans in advanced armor fighting alien soldiers. Human ships with impossible weapons tearing apart enemy vessels. The humans in these images moved with deadly purpose, showing no mercy to their attackers. The war changed us, Admiral Chun explained. We realized that the galaxy was full of predators. Species like the Devourers who would take what they wanted from weaker civilizations. We decided to make sure that humanity would never be weak again. Vexhai stared at the images in shock. You have been preparing for war for 200 years. We have been preparing to survive, Admiral Chun corrected. After the war, we moved most of our civilization underground and into hidden space stations. The Earth you scanned is real, but it only holds about 10% of our actual population. The rest live in places you never detected. Where? Admiral Chen gestured, and the images changed to show massive cities carved into asteroids, hidden bases on the dark sides of moons, and space stations disguised as empty rocks. The scope of human construction was staggering. We have been watching the galaxy for 2 centuries, Admiral Chun said, learning about every species, every technology, every weakness. We knew about the Zephyrian Empire long before you found Earth. Queef leaned forward in her chair. How did you hide all of this? Our sensors are very advanced. Your sensors see what we want them to see. For 200 years, we have been developing technology specifically designed to remain hidden. Stealth fields, false readings, holographic projections. We became experts at deception because our survival depended on it. The holographic display showed the Leviathan under construction. Vexhai watched in amazement as thousands of humans worked to build the massive ship inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The construction had taken decades and used technologies he could not understand. The Leviathan is our first public warship, Admiral Chun said. For the first time, we are allowing outsiders to see what we are truly capable of building. First, Vexhai asked, You have others? Admiral Chun's smile became predatory. Commander, the Leviathan is one of 57 ships of its class, and it is not our largest vessel. The room fell silent. Vexhai tried to imagine 57 ships, like the one that had just destroyed most of his fleet. The idea was terrifying. Why are you telling us this? Kreef asked. Because the galaxy is about to change, Admiral Chun said. For too long, species like yours have been able to attack weaker civilizations without consequences. You find a planet with primitive technology and you take what you want. You never consider that some species might be hiding their true capabilities. She stood up and walked around the table to face Vexhai directly. Humanity has decided to reveal ourselves to the galaxy. We are tired of hiding. We are ready to take our place among the stars. What does that mean for the Zephyrian Empire? Vexhai asked. That depends on your empire's choices, Admiral Chun replied. We have no interest in conquering other species or building an empire. We simply want to be left alone. Any species that respects our territory and treats us as equals will have no problems with humanity. And if they do not respect your territory? Admiral Chun's expression became cold. Then they will learn why Earth is still here, despite being attacked by dozens of different species over the past 2 centuries. Kreef spoke up hesitantly. You said dozens of species have attacked Earth. 43 different civilizations have tried to conquer or destroy humanity since the Devourer War, Admiral Chun confirmed. Some came with invasion fleets. Others sent assassins or tried to poison our atmosphere. A few attempted to manipulate our governments from within. What happened to them? They no longer exist, Admiral Chun said simply. The implications hit Vexhai like a physical blow. 43 entire civilizations had been completely destroyed by humanity. Species that had existed for thousands of years. Wiped out without anyone in the galaxy even knowing what had happened to them. You have been committing genocide for 2 centuries, he whispered. We have been surviving, Admiral Chun corrected firmly. Every species that attacked us chose their fate. We always offer the same choice we are offering you now. Leave us alone and live in peace." She returned to her seat and looked directly at both Zephyrian officers. "You will be released to return to your empire. You will carry our message to your leaders. Humanity is no longer hiding. We are here, we are strong, and we will defend ourselves against any threat. Will they believe us?" Kreith asked. Admiral Chun smiled. "Probably not at first. Your leaders will think you are lying or insane. But they will send scouts to investigate. And when those scouts return with confirmation of what they have seen, your empire will need to make a choice." She stood up again, indicating that the meeting was over. "Choose wisely, Commander Vexhai. The galaxy has room for the Zephyrian Empire and humanity to coexist peacefully. But if your people decide to test our resolve, they will discover why we survived when so many others did not." As the human soldiers escorted them back to their ship, Vexhai realized that everything about galactic civilization was about to change. The humans were not just another species to be conquered or ignored. They were something new and terrifying, and they had been watching and learning about everyone else for 200 years. The journey back to Zephyrian space took 3 weeks. During that time, Vexhai and Kreith tried to make sense of what they had experienced. Their ship's sensors had recorded everything, but the data seemed impossible even to them. The humans had given them their ship back without any apparent modifications. However, Vexhai suspected that their vessel now carried hidden monitoring devices. The humans had demonstrated their ability to manipulate matter in ways that defied understanding. Hiding tiny sensors throughout his ship would be simple for them. "Sir," Kreith said as they approached their home system, "how do we report this to command? They will think we have lost our minds." Vexhai had been wrestling with the same question. His report would claim that humanity possessed technology superior to anything in the known galaxy. He would have to explain how a primitive species had destroyed most of his fleet with weapons that seemed to violate physics. "We tell them the truth," he decided. "We show them the sensor recordings and let them draw their own conclusions." The Zephyrian High Command was located on a massive space station orbiting their homeworld. Vexhai had reported to this station dozens of times throughout his career. But this time felt different. This time he was bringing news that would change everything. Supreme Commander Thexver listened to Vexhai's report in complete silence. The station's most senior officers gathered around the holographic display as the recordings played. They watched their ships being destroyed by impossible weapons. They saw the Leviathan moving through space like a living mountain. When the recordings ended, nobody spoke for several minutes. "This is obviously fabricated," Supreme Commander Thexver finally said. "No species could hide technology like this. Our intelligence networks monitor every advanced civilization in the galaxy." "Sir, I assure you these recordings are genuine," Vexhai replied. "I was there. I saw it with my own eyes." "You saw what the humans wanted you to see. This is clearly some kind of elaborate hoax designed to frighten us away from their world." Other officers began voicing similar opinions. The humans must have used advanced holographic technology to create false images. The ship Vexhai had encountered was probably much smaller than it appeared. The weapon effects were illusions designed to confuse Zephyrian sensors. Kreith H tried to speak up. "Sir, the gravitational readings were consistent with a vessel of enormous mass. The energy signatures were beyond our measurement capabilities. These effects cannot be faked. Any sufficiently advanced hoax can fool primitive sensors," another officer said dismissively. Supreme Commander Thexver made his decision. "We will send a proper investigation fleet to this system. 3 battle groups should be sufficient to deal with whatever the humans are actually hiding." Vexhai felt a chill of fear. "Sir, I strongly recommend against that course of action. The humans are far more dangerous than they appear. Your recommendation is noted and rejected, Commander. You are obviously suffering from some form of psychological trauma. Report to medical for evaluation. As Vexai was escorted away, he knew that his people were making a terrible mistake. But there was nothing more he could do to convince them. The investigation fleet departed 2 weeks later. It consisted of 36 Zephyrian warships, including some of the Empire's most powerful vessels. The fleet commander, Admiral Kexeloth, was confident that this show of force would resolve any misunderstanding with the humans. The fleet never returned. After a month of silence, Supreme Commander Thexfer was forced to admit that something serious had happened. Emergency sessions were called. Intelligence networks throughout the galaxy were activated to gather information about this mysterious human species. What they discovered was terrifying. Other civilizations had also sent fleets to investigate. Earth, after hearing rumors about advanced human technology, those fleets had also disappeared completely. No distress signals, no survivors, no debris. Entire battle groups had simply vanished without trace. Intelligence reports began arriving from across the galaxy. Human trading posts were appearing in multiple star systems. Trading posts that looked suspiciously like military bases. Human ships were being spotted in regions where no human had ever traveled before. These ships used technology that nobody could identify or understand. The humans were not hiding anymore. Supreme Commander Thexfer called an emergency council meeting. Representatives from a dozen different civilizations attended via holographic projection. Everyone had the same story to tell. The humans had revealed themselves simultaneously to multiple species across the galaxy. "We are dealing with a coordinated campaign," announced the representative from the Corvin Syndicate. "The humans have been planning this revelation for a long time. How many ships do they have?" asked the Altarian delegate. "Unknown. Our scouts have identified at least 200 vessels of various sizes. All of them use technology we cannot understand." The representative from the ancient Nexus Confederation spoke up. The Nexus was one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, with technology that surpassed most other species. If anyone could understand the human threat, it would be them. "We have completed our analysis of the available data," the Nexus delegate said. "The humans are using technologies that should not be possible with their apparent age as a civilization. Either they have developed science beyond our comprehension, or they have had help from an unknown source." "Help from who?" Supreme Commander Thexfer asked. "That is what concerns us. There are only a few species in this galaxy capable of developing such technology. Most of them have been extinct for millions of years." The implications were frightening. If humanity had somehow gained access to ancient technologies, they might be more powerful than any current civilization. Over the following months, reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. Human ships were establishing permanent presence in dozens of star systems. They were not conquering worlds or building an empire. Instead, they were simply announcing their existence and warning other species to keep their distance. The humans had sent the same message to every major civilization. "We wish to coexist peacefully, but we will defend ourselves against any threat." Most species chose to avoid human space entirely rather than test their resolve. The few that tried to challenge humanity simply disappeared. No battles were reported, no debris was found. Ships would enter human territory and never return. Vexai was eventually vindicated when more survivors began returning to tell similar stories. A few species had been allowed to leave human space after brief encounters. All of them reported the same thing. Humanity possessed weapons and technology that made them virtually unstoppable in combat. How did they hide this for so long? Kreeth asked during one of their debriefing sessions. She had become the Empire's lead expert on human technology, though she admitted she understood almost none of it. "They were patient," Vexai replied. They spent 2 centuries watching and learning about us while we ignored them. They knew our weaknesses before we knew they existed. Reports began arriving about massive construction projects in human space. Whatever the humans were building now made their revealed warships look small by comparison. Long-range sensors detected structures hundreds of kilometers long, being assembled in the outer regions of their solar system. The galaxy's power structure was changing. Species that had dominated their regions for thousands of years now found themselves looking over their shoulders, wondering if the humans were watching them. Trade routes were altered to avoid human space. Military deployments were adjusted to account for the new threat, the Nexus. Confederation called for a galaxy-wide summit to address the human situation. Representatives from every major civilization gathered to discuss what should be done. The conclusion was unanimous. Nothing could be done. Humanity was too powerful to fight and too patient to provoke. The galaxy would have to learn to coexist with them. As Vexai sat in his quarters aboard the Zephyrian command station, he received a message on his personal communicator. The transmission was encrypted with codes that his ship's computer could not break. "Commander Vexai," said a familiar human voice. It was Admiral Chun Wei. "I wanted to thank you for delivering our message to your people so effectively." "How are you communicating with me?" Vexai asked. "We have been monitoring Zephyrian communications for many years. Breaking your encryption was simple for our computers." "What do you want?" "To let you know that your empire made the right choice. Your leaders decided not to send any more fleets against Earth. That was wise." Vexai felt a chill. The humans had been watching the Zephyrian Empire's internal discussions and decisions. Their intelligence network was far more extensive than anyone had imagined. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now the galaxy adjusts to a new reality," Admiral Chun replied. "For the first time in millions of years, there is a species that cannot be conquered or controlled. We will see how everyone else adapts to that fact." The transmission ended, leaving Vexai alone with his thoughts. Through his window, he could see the stars that had once seemed so familiar. But now he knew that something was out there in the darkness. Something that had been watching and waiting for 200 years. The humans had finally revealed themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same.